Heather, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. Looking at your background, I was, excited but also intimidated because I'm like, okay, she's first of all an awesome athlete. You are a two-time Olympic gold medalist. You have done Olympics, various world championships, World Cup. So, you've done so many different sports, and I'm really excited to dive into it and just, let's start with your story because I think it's so fascinating. Just give my audience like a background of just tell me, how you decided to go into all of these. What was it in your childhood maybe that pushed you to be an athlete?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think the reason why I've become kind of appealing as a speaker and also as a coach is that I didn't actually start training for sports or taking it seriously till I was 27. So I think that kind of makes, again, your podcast is called Shift, and my whole business is around helping people shift their perspectives on what is possible and helping them see those possibilities. And oftentimes when they hear that piece of information, it kind of makes them stop for a second and be like, wait a second, how am I selling myself short in certain areas where I'm thinking it's too late to start something? So, yeah, I grew up I did play sports. I grew up playing sports, but I grew up in a very small province on the east coast of Canada. So, accessible only by a plane or a 13-kilometer bridge, which was actually a 45-minute ferry ride when I was growing up. So I wasn't surrounded by people wanting to go to the Olympics or training to go represent our country at some upcoming event. And so Olympians, they were TV people. High
Mhm.
performance sports were on TV. They weren't everyday normal people like I considered myself to be. Like for whatever reason, there was just that was them. This is us. This is what normal
Mhm.
is. And um, so I grew up in an academic family, and so I pursued a career in a master's degree in occupational therapy, thinking that sports was just going to be extracurricular, what I wanted to do to earn a living. And then at 27, I just got roped into doing a testing camp. So I had turned them down 4 years before, and then I was asked to do a testing camp, and I I just to get this recruiter off my back, I just agreed to do a testing camp, and I ended up breaking one of their testing records. And all of a sudden, I was just like, wait a second, you mean to tell me I've broken a record amongst all these athletes who've been training for years and who are supposed to be representing us at the next Olympics, which are in 5 months? So it suddenly became this challenge. I didn't even see a bobsled before. I hadn't even been in a bobsled or down a track before. And all of a sudden, it became a challenge. Can I actually learn a new sport, learn to do it well, and learn to do it well in time to represent my country in 5 months' time? So I fell in love with the challenge. And I was already, just the year before, I had started playing rugby with the national women's rugby team. So it kind of, I ended up having to juggle both of those while at the same time also juggling my master's degree in occupational therapy because I had already done the first year of that program. So I applied for a 1 year leave of absence from my program, and they gave that to me. And so it gave me an opportunity to kind of challenge myself and see what I was able to accomplish in that year.
Yeah. Talk to me a little about the testing camp. So elaborate. So what does it look like? Like just a little quick overview for people
Yeah,
like myself who are not familiar.
for sure. A testing camp, it's kind of like it's a physical testing camp. It's like a combine. It's kind of that would
Mm-hmm.
happen for football or for some of the other sports. And so this one particular one kind of went over a week, although the physical testing was really only 2 or 3 days. And the first day, I actually got permission to miss the first day of testing because I was playing rugby nationals. So I was, out of the province. I was, out of on the other side of the country, doing rugby at the national championships. And so I missed the first day of testing. And fortunately, I missed it because it was all weightlifting. And so they test your scores on lifting, but I had never lifted weights before. So by missing that day, I avoided embarrassment. I avoided injuring myself because I probably wouldn't have told anyone that I didn't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
I would have just copied someone. So fortunately for me, I missed that first day of testing. The second day was more like kind of plyo power speed testing. So doing sprints through timing lights where they time you for these sprints. And some of the sprints you're pulling a weighted sled behind you. Some of them it's just free sprint. They test your acceleration. Then they test bounding to try and test your power output, your vertical jump, all of these kind of power, speed, plyo kind of tests. And so those are the
Mm-hmm.
tests that they kind of do over a 2 to 3 day period. And then based on those results, they give you a 1 day sort of a trial of seeing if you can put a fake sled. It's kind of like a frame sled in this indoor push training facility. And so they kind of teach you very basic techniques on it and kind of see what your natural abilities are.
Yeah.
Um, and then they go from there. So if you do well in that, then with those numbers, then they pair you up with someone and then they test you in pairs pushing. And all of these so by the end of the week, you kind of have some numbers, I guess, some quantitative numbers, some data that coaches and the drivers, like the pilots, the bobsled pilots or drivers,
Mhm.
can use to make decisions on who they want to push them for that upcoming season. So that's, yeah, based on that information, I had two drivers come and approach me and ask me if I wanted to push for them. And all of a sudden I was like, well, wait a second. I wasn't actually expecting to do this. I was just doing this testing camp to get this recruiter off my back, and I'm in the middle of my master's degree. So what am I going to do? So I went back to Toronto, put my master's, talked to my faculty advisor, put my degree on hold for a year,
Mhm.
and then went back out. I had to talk to the national rugby coach as well and explain this whole thing,
Mhm.
um,
Like
because
I got Olympics in 5 months.
yeah,
Can I
I'm going to
pause?
try. And so I would have to miss a couple of the tours that the rugby team did over the winter.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, I guess he goes, you can miss the first one. The second one you can only miss if you're going to the Olympics, I guess will be, So he actually, I don't think expected me to be going to that Olympics. But I did. So I missed both of those. So then I had to do my own I had to do tryouts and stuff in the fall leading up to those Olympics as well. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
very cool, very cool. It's interesting because it's if they came to you 4 years before, and like, do you ever look back and you're like, I wonder, I'm curious, like, do you ever look back and be like, I wonder if I would have done it then, or like,
Yeah.
would you have continued?
I think that when they asked me before, I said no, I wasn't interested. And the person who was recruiting me, he was just like, but Heather, like I know who's in the program. I know what you're capable of. I know your abilities. You'd be going to the Olympics for sure. Like you'd be an Olympian. And you could tell by his reaction that going to the Olympics had always been a dream of his, but it hadn't been a dream of mine. Like going to the Olympics,
Hmm.
I didn't grow up dreaming about going there. So to me,
Hmm.
I had always wanted to work in a developing country, and I had just accepted a position to work in Trinidad and Tobago. At the time, it was Zimbabwe, but I got switched over to Trinidad and Tobago as a disability sports program officer. So at the time, I was pursuing what my dream
Hmm.
was. I was
Hmm.
pursuing something that I felt was important and was to me. And so even that moment and that those choices have helped me help my clients with more value-based decision making. And I really feel like that is the kind of the I guess my advantage or the power that I have in bringing to
Hmm.
clients and audiences is because I'm not coming from a pursuit kind of way. I'm coming at a very different perspective,
Yeah.
more at a point where I was already empowered to make value-based decisions and I wasn't being kind of sucked into the choices that society think are the ones you should be making. And I
Hmm.
think that's what a lot of issues with society right now that a lot of people are struggling with is people not knowing one, what it is they really want because we're so bombarded by the opinions and values and expectations of society and of the people around us. And it's just, it's just noise and we can't actually hear our own thoughts, our own hearts, our own, what our souls are telling us that we really want to be doing. And it's really hard to make those value-based decisions so that we will ultimately, which my goal is for my people, is to help them feel successful. Like that idea of fulfillment, which is the idea of feeling successful, not just outward success as defined by others. Because I know a lot of very outwardly successful people who are not in the happiest states of their life. So that's where I'm at right now. It's to one, help people initially get to a point where they're not selling themselves short and can discover what they're truly capable of, but also being able to make those decisions where they actually are feeling successful and feeling at peace, like they're exactly where they're meant to be and exactly doing what they're meant to be doing and at the capacity that they're able to and that they want to. So yeah, it's been a pretty, I feel very fortunate that I
Mm.
did what I did the way that I did it without even realizing that that was pretty empowering.
Mm. I think you're so spot on with that. I heard some the other day from this the speaker. His name is John Cena, and he was talking about I forget the exact term, but it was like basically like miserable success. So meaning that you like
That's a
when you're
good
really
term. Yeah.
I think it's what it was. I apologize if you listened to it and I got it wrong, but miserable success, like basically you are super successful, but you're miserable because you're not aligned. Like you might be really great at what you're doing, you're able to monetize and you make great wealth, but then you're so either you're just not happy doing what you're doing and just like or you keep chasing that next thing and the next thing that you're already thinking about, like, okay, I have this, now what's the next thing instead of just being present. So it's not really success, it's being successful but miserable at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is around the values. And I see this a lot in my work. I'm in talent development and I work with a lot of people from different backgrounds and, mid to senior level professionals and corporates. And I'm always like, it's you start to pay attention and you start to see how disconnected and just unsatisfied, unfulfilled people are. And to your point, it's like, well, you don't have to be that way. Like it just requires us to be still for just that moment. But that's the hard part, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
that's the hard part.
it is. But a lot of people are, there's this term out there called the corporate athlete. And so a lot of times I get hired to help people with this high performance and utilizing the mindset, like this champion mindset I talk about in terms of helping people achieve this. But I have to be very clear, it's not just helping people achieve this high level of performance. For me, it's also about helping people achieve this a sustained high performance, sustainable high performance, not just getting there and then burning out in the
Hmm.
next chapter, but being able to maintain this and also this level of high performance, not just in one area of your life, but high performance meaning your entire life as a whole. So making sure that the different components and aspects and areas of your life are all actually where you want them to be and a level of satisfaction, not necessarily a level of output. So it's been really, really interesting working with individual clients as well as with teams and organizations to help figure out what is the best way, because it's so counterintuitive to most people now because of what we've been living in for so long. So counterintuitive to take that step back. And I have this mind shift. It's funny, your podcast again called Shift, and I talk about mind shift all the time. This shift, the term, the phrase that we hear all the time, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, where it's like, oh, we're making progress, and then oh, we're pulled back again, and all of these things. And I started giving it some thought, and I actually think we have it backwards, and we need to flip the script. And so instead of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, implying discouragement, like, oh, every time I make progress, I kind of get pulled back again. I actually think it's a strategy. So instead of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, it's supposed to be 1 step back to take 2 steps forward, to make the progress that you need. We have to actually embed and implement that step back, that rest and recovery that we need in order to have the energy, but also the perspective to make sure that we're going in the direction we want to be going in, but the energy in order to get there and also be able to maintain that level. And
Hmm.
I mean, people are thinking like, oh, no, I need to treat my business and everything like an athlete and go, 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 go. But people forget that athletes take recovery. The higher level you go in sports and competing as an athlete, the more emphasis and importance is placed on recovery. And I just
Hmm.
don't see that happening in any other industry. So
Hmm.
I feel like that's partly my responsibility to kind of infuse these, what I call micro, meso, and macro levels of recovery into someone who wants to be successful in all areas of their life, including their business, including their home life. And anyway, it's been really fun.
Mm. I mean, listen, rest is productive, and I think that's what I've learned that the hard way. Like rest is rest is productive. Like you're still being, it's actually like intentional, and I think we forget that. But like you gotta just chill sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think what people don't realize is that what I think we have to really look at what rest is and
Mm.
what we feel like recovery is, because doom scrolling on your phone is not actual rest. We're not giving our
Mm.
brains the rest, or sitting and watching the news. That's not rest,
Yeah.
right? That's causing trauma and internal trauma for a lot of people. So there are things that we need to actually be really aware of, and rest and recovery are two different things, and they're both essential to, like, rest is passive and recovery is active, but recovery is what we do to fill our cup, not just doom scrolling and passively,
Mhm.
you know, rotting our brains away.
Give me a small example of both for like the corporate professional maybe looking at this and they say, okay, well, I get it, but most of my rest days are watching Netflix, or watching the
Yeah.
news. Like, what's an example of rest and recovery for a corporate athlete, let's say?
Yeah, so if you think, well, yeah, so if you think about rest, in all of those areas, so rest comes in cycles for I'll talk about it for athletes, and then you can see how it happens in the corporate world. For athletes, for example, a micro recovery happens within a day. So it's something, things that you do intentionally during the day to help you with, kind of, take those breaks so that you're actually getting the most out of your day. And those would be like breaks between their sets, breaks between their different sets and reps, depending on how they're maxing out, or what their things are between exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Taking stretch breaks, hydration breaks, um, all of those different things. So those are little micro breaks that corporate athletes would need to also take in the office. They need to step away. So many of them are working through their lunch breaks. It's not a break. They're just eating and working at the same time. They're just now multitasking instead of actually taking a break. A lot of people suggest even stepping outside for 15 minutes in the middle of the day, whereas a lot of people who are like, no, man, I got to get this done. I gotta get this through, like pump it through. And so it ends up being like this, just go, 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 go. And there's no time to just sit. Sitting, even if you can't get outside, but you sit by a window and you look outside and you actually just, you don't even have to meditate. I personally am not a meditator, but in terms of mindfulness and being in that moment, just being able to check and sit and unplug from your work, standing up and walking around the office,
Mm-hmm.
just standing up, even going, having a conversation with a coworker that's not about work for about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. All of those things are those micro recovery breaks that we need during the day to kind of refresh, keep our brains on top of it. Weekly, those would be what I call those MISO recovery breaks. Those are weekly recovery breaks, and they're built into athletes' training programs. So athletes take at least one recovery day every week, regardless of training sessions. If they train once a day, if they train twice a day, every athlete will have at least one recovery day a week. And personally, my trainer had me on two. I was more of a nervous system. It was more of a nervous system athlete. So I would always, never two in a row, never a full weekend, but always a Thursday and a Sunday I would take off completely. And usually those were right after like an intense, 2-a-day workouts where you're training twice a day. It's very, very heavy days. And then the next day it's kind of a full recovery day. And in society, um, we used to automatically have those recovery days, those weekly cyclical recovery days built into our weeks when nothing was open on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
If people remember those days where stores were not open on Sundays. And so you had to do your grocery shopping before Sunday if you wanted anything. You had to plan ahead. You couldn't go and shop around the mall. Offices weren't closed, so nobody was going into work on Sundays because nothing was open. So those were forced recovery days back in the day, and we don't have those anymore. And that's why we're like, it's the natural recovery is not built right into our time. Even in the evenings at home, we're still on our phones. We still have email attached to us, all of those things. So the daily ones are hard. The weekly ones are hard because all of that stuff has been removed from us. So for those have to be extremely intentional with people. People need to find those, blocks of time. Now, it might not be a full day. If it's a full day, amazing. But every corporate athlete is going to need a different strategy for what works with them and their family or their lifestyle. And it's, for some of them, it might be disconnecting completely from being online, which right now some people are panicking. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. And for some people, it's setting out certain just chunks of time for them to step away. Some people, and that's why it's not a one size fits all scenario, because some people can just put it away and unplug and start recharging right away, whereas other people, their brains don't shut off as quickly. They actually need longer times to shut off, which is why the macro recovery is really, really important for those people. It seems harder for those people. It's harder to break away, but it's probably the most important. And those macro ones would be like as an athlete taking a break at the end of a season. They take extended leaves
Mm-hmm.
and rest breaks after a season. Some of them it's a couple weeks, which is would be small. For me, it was a couple weeks because I was switching sports. So I would go right from bobsledding right into rugby. But for a lot of athletes, it can be 1 to 2 months. It can be a solid 2 month time where they're off, they're not training. It's a full recovery. And then after the 2 months, they start building their foundational blocks back up again and then kind of working back towards that. And when it comes to a corporate athlete, that's where it is really important to take those vacations, to take those holidays. The only problem is that oftentimes our vacations are not, we're coming home from our vacations more tired than when we left, because our vacations, we're not vacating our issues. We're either trying to do work at the same time for a lot of people, or if it's a family vacation, we all know how amazing and wonderful they are, but how chaotically amazing they are. And we're go, 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 and we're exploring this thing and we're doing this and we're doing whatever, and everything's planned and scheduled into these holidays. Um, so often they're not recovery breaks. They're great breaks and good time to spend with family, but they're not recovery. Recovery is often done kind of somewhat in solitude or having that space to be able to actually recharge one's batteries. And so some people who want that sustainable high performance, that's why there are a lot of people are now looking a lot more into retreats and like actually scheduling a week or 10 days away. And for some, it sounds really scary. Like, oh my gosh, I could never take 10 days away. Those are usually the people who probably need it the most.
Mm-hmm.
But taking that time away and actually finding something that suits them, and everyone's different. But that's why I'm starting to implement those retreats into my business because I just see that need for it so much.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how it kind of equates to being an athlete and needing those recovery breaks and for an athlete and your corporate athletes, like those people who really want to do well and perform, have a sustainable high performance in their business. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also I've over my kind of career and life in general, I've had a number of coaches, like personal brand coaches and career coaches and business coaches and
Yeah.
you name it, and personal trainers. And I think that's where the value is at because we get so busy. And to your point, like when you have a retreat, when you were kind of forced in a way to be, because you know
Yeah.
you're not gonna be checking your phone when you're with other people and they're everybody's really like in that moment because you have this I think when you're on your own, at least this is what I went through, and I think a lot of people can relate is like I tend to work really hard, like I mean like 6 7 days a week, right? I've operated in this like for the longest time was operating as this was a scarcity mindset where I feel like I always have to do, and only
Yeah.
in recent couple years I'm like, wait, like I've done, like I've hustled, like it's enough, like I need to now I can allow myself to do X, Y, and Z. But it took a lot of overcoming guilt and overcoming fear because it's like, oh, if I don't do this, am I gonna lose an opportunity? Or I feel guilty if I'm just doing and not doing anything. Like to me, to just sit down and read a book was like, are you crazy? Like you need to do X, Y, and Z. So it's that fear.
That's where we need to reframe, because the things that are holding us back from actually getting the rest and recovery that we need is one, that society is glorifying busyness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how are you doing? Oh, busy. Oh, okay, great. Like it's we're glorifying busyness. Rest has become like we have somehow society has equated that to being lazy.
Mm-hmm.
So luxury, lazy. We've also kind of most of us have grown up thinking that rest or recovery or these things are treats or kind of, I don't want to say prizes, but
It's
they're
like a
basically
privilege almost.
contingent on getting your work done. Like I'll rest when I get to
Mm,
this, or
yeah.
I'll then go on vacations after I reach this point in my business or after I meet this, quota threshold or whatever. And we need to and also technology, just being bombarded by technology at all times, being the messages being sent to us about if you're not doing enough, then you must not want it badly enough. Like we're living in a world of extremes right now, and it really doesn't take extremes, which is why I love the name of your podcast, Shift, because that's where I talk about the champion mind shifts. It can be the most subtle shift, tiny shift, and even just one word that you use that can help change you to, like help you either see the possibilities that exist, change the way that you're focused, like change what you're focusing on, change how you see something. Like it's just remarkable how if you look at rest as a strategy instead of as a luxury that's earned, and instead you utilize that as being like, you know what, I don't want to rest right now. Like I want to be doing this, but I'm going to do this because this is part of a strategy to actually get, this is actually going to get, it may get you there faster. And if it doesn't get you there faster, it might sustain you longer. Like it's whatever that, however that rest is going to help you, you need to start thinking about that in terms of your strategy. And so it's such an important concept that we've kind of let slip by
Hmm.
because society's just been dominating us with all of this go, 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 go,
Mm.
go, extreme this. Like if you're not, if you're not in a cold tub for 22 hours a day and not, starving yourself for, every month except January, like it's, you're almost made to feel guilty and shameful that you're not, obviously I don't want it enough because I eat every day. Like it's a really um it's an unhealthy mindset. And so for me, it's not about extremes. Being successful, being feeling fulfilled is about making the choices that are actually right for you and not the ones that we're made to feel like we should be wanting. So that's my goal, is to help people not sell themselves short, but find this level of fulfillment where they actually feel successful and
Mm.
feel well and are very happy.
Do
Yeah.
you find that people tend to get to that ready to hear and ready to apply that mindset shift when they've just kind of reached their peak of like, okay, I can't handle this anymore? Or do you see more proactive shifts? Like, is there like any themes that you've seen?
Yeah, I think most people wait until they need to recover.
Mm.
And it's, yeah, when they just feel like they're on that verge of burnout. To be honest, to be honest, I'm always honest, but like to be fair, I think it depends on what level they're at. And if they have reached a point of really high success because they've been so intense for so long, some people also think that the way that things are going, it's worked in the past, so it's going to keep working, and they don't
Mm.
realize that it's going to break, that there's a breaking point at some point. And so it's when they're teetering on that breaking point where they're like, okay, something in their life has been sacrificed. Their family has been sacrificed. Maybe that has caused their work ethic has caused a divorce. Maybe their health is at risk now. So there's something that's going to give. If you can't learn to manage your energy, you need energy for high performance. You need to learn how to manage that energy to have sustainable high performance.
Mm.
And if you can't do that, something's got to give because you only have a certain amount of energy. And the problem is that most high performing people now are actually performing at a suboptimal level. The ones who think that they're okay and that they're still performing at a high level of performance, that high level of performance is actually probably less than what they're capable of. It's that's become the new norm. Like
Hmm.
it's kind of like a dull roar, like it's that 80, 85%. And they're like, yeah, no, things are going really well, really well, really well. But they don't realize whether actually what what extra capacity they're missing out on because they've just been functioning at that level for so long.
Yeah. Well, it's like
Yeah.
one of those things like you don't know when you don't know what you don't know, but also you don't know how maybe how bad you feel or how lack of performance I mean
Yeah.
your lack of performance until you're there and you're like, oh my God, then you look back and you're like, wait a minute, I wasn't at my top at all.
Yeah. So
Uh,
most people actually don't identify their lack of energy or their lack of rest and recovery, or accurate, like I should say efficient rest and recovery. They don't usually recognize that until something in their life is being affected.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them think that because in their work and their business, everything's going well, but they haven't really taken a look around them and been like, okay, well, is my health being affected? Is my happiness in terms of hobbies or friends, my relationships, is that being affected? Is my relationship with my kids, like whatever, what relation,
Mm-hmm.
something's being affected. And so you just have to figure out what it is. And that's when you dive down and figure out what your values and your priorities are and what your actual satisfaction levels are in all areas of your life. And then you break it down and figure out, okay, how can I have more energy for here? How can I bring more energy into here? Because it all comes down to energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these retreats, can you share a little bit more about them? Are you already like ready with them? Are you kind of
Yeah.
thinking about
So
it?
no, so this has been in the works for a while. And I'm actually just getting a list of people who are interested in doing these. And so the first one looks like it'll be this April or May,
Mm-hmm.
and looking like it's going to be in Morocco. Now, I'll tell you why my choice for destination retreats, and this is because I feel like a lot of these high performing people, um, or people who are striving for high performance, forget to live the width of their life, and they're just trying to live the length of it. And so my retreats, there are some retreats where they're just some people there are yoga retreats everywhere. Like so retreats are very personal, and it depends on what people are looking for. And
Mm-hmm.
mine, it combines my three different focuses, and one is disconnect to reconnect. So disconnecting from the noise of everyday life in order to actually be able to um, reconnect with what's really important to you and the things that you really want to focus on. It's also that one step back to take two steps forward. So literally removing yourself and having the actual downtime and rest and recovery that you need. But it's also my belief that a lot of people are working so hard to earn a living that they're forgetting to earn, like to live their life. And so this is actually going to incorporate some really cool experiential, unique experiences. So kind of balancing out these three concepts for me. So one, not only are people going home rested and recovered and kind of regrounded in what they really want, but also going home with some really cool experiences that they can share. Because there's so many people who are at the end of their life and have these regrets of, yeah, I worked my whole life, but
Mm-hmm.
I never did these things. So my retreats will be in different locations. But right now, so if anybody listening wants to be on that list, I can certainly give you the links for them to
Yeah.
set out, and we'll be feeding out information. The location right now, I have a few accommodations set up. It just depends on which ones, how many people we're going to have go.
Yeah.
But these be pretty intimate retreats. I'm pretty excited about them.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I'm a huge fan of retreats. I think
Yeah.
it's like you don't even know how great they are until you're in one. You're like, why don't I do this all the time? They're
I think that
fabulous.
I kind of see these retreats. I'll probably end up having two a year, two destination ones, and maybe one a little more local that's not as big of a travel commitment for
Hmm.
people. But part of it is I believe that people will probably choose these as this annual reset. And
Hmm.
that's why I'm going to pick a different location, because then people can explore different locations with
Yeah.
me and we can have these different experiences. And every year you kind of have this, okay, I'm gonna use this as a reset, a good recharge. Like I was saying, those macro recovery breaks that athletes take. And this would be
Hmm.
like symbolic of one of those macro recovery breaks that, a corporate athlete would need to take or an executive
Yeah.
athlete would need to take. So I'm very excited because I see the benefits that those will provide for people. And it's it'll be a learning curve for some people to figure out how much time they need, because some people are like, oh no, I have 3 days or 4 days. Well, that's great, but that might be a little more around those weekly, or maybe a 3-day thing is kind of a monthly thing. But
Hmm.
for someone to actually feel what it's like to rest and like let work go for a bit, that is going to be a big struggle for people. And I
Hmm.
think the people who struggle the most with that, like I said earlier, are probably the ones who might need it the most. And if people are interested in these retreats and they are struggling with that, we can certainly, have, discussions and try and figure out how we can make things work for people. But it's a that's we may need to do a few coaching sessions beforehand so that
Yeah.
they believe that they're able to do that and work on some strategies for them to let go at work.
I think there was a study and they said like for an average person when they go on vacation it takes like 2 to 3 days, like 48 to 70 hours just to
Yeah,
disconnect from work. So I think
yeah.
it's pretty normal,
That's
you
average.
know.
I know for
Yeah.
my father, for example, he was a very hard worker, and he still had most Sundays like we had those off. And for us, all of our homework had to be done before Sundays. All of our
Mm,
chores had to be done before Sundays. So Sundays was a real recovery day for us, and a
mm,
really great connection day with family for us. So that was really important. But he worked like there were no other vacations um, until August. And he would take a whole month, the month of August, which he was very fortunate about. But he didn't actually start to relax until into the second week. So for him, it took a long time to just actually like get to that point because you can stop and you can just be still like do, 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 like just on edge or waiting for that vibration or that beep in your pocket or the whatever. And
mm,
so without that it takes a little while for people to actually get in that moment. So that's why strategically we're trying to figure out time, like the length of time for these retreats. So if you sign up, anybody's interested and they sign up for this, there is a survey that kind of gets an idea of how long we're looking. And right now we're
mhm,
looking at 6 to 7 days.
mhm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So I'll make
Yeah.
sure to include that in the show notes. Before I ask you my last question, where else do you hang out if somebody wants to get in touch with you or follow your work?
Oh gosh, well, they can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all under Heather Moyse.
Mhm,
I'm pretty easy to find. Through my website, if it's something direct or if it's a request, um, just if it's a request for an upcoming event or wanting me to come and talk to their group or their team or their leadership team, whatever it is, or for
mhm.
coaching, just send an email through my website or Heather Moyse. It's all heathermoyse.com. Just because if it goes through social media in case I can't get to those messages or in case there's a wave of influx messages. I just would hate to miss something. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Great. I'll make sure to include all that in the show notes. And the last question I ask all of my guests, what is
Yeah.
one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
Ooh, wow. That's a good question, Elena. Probably, can I say two questions?
Sure.
I would probably say, what do I really want? Really want. And the next question would be, what's really stopping me? Like
Beautiful.
really stopping me. And those are usually not external factors. Those are usually the internal, like the things that I talk about a lot when I'm talking about mind shifts, this champion mindset or the obstacles we really have to overcome are our own internal ones, the assumptions, self-limiting beliefs, um, our comfort zones. We just avoid discomfort all the time, whether that's being comfortable or whether go, go, go is our comfort zone and stopping is not our comfort zone. That's a lot, very, very hard for some type A personalities out there. And also our fears, the fears that are standing in our way. And often those aren't the fears that we think they are. It's not actually the fear, it's not actually failure that we fear. It's what we assume failure will bring, which is usually the ridicule or judgment. It's usually the judgment of other people. So that's what we're really fearing. So for me, it's all about living, trying to live with no regret, not looking back on opportunities not taken, on opportunities missed or passed by, and finding that level of fulfillment.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much. Personally, for me, and it was just a reminder to recover, reset, just rest when I need to. And it's really, I appreciate the work that you're doing. And hopefully, these retreats, maybe you'll find me at one of them. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
that would be
sold. As
great.
you're talking, I was like, that sounds like it's exactly for me. And Morocco's been on my list anyway. So
Oh,
if
awesome.
that's the
Well,
destination, we'll see.
sign
Yeah,
up for the list, and then as
yeah,
information comes out, we'll trickle it out to you, and then maybe who knows? Maybe I'll see you there.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.